Okay. Okay, welcome. My name is David Pinto. I'm going to talk us through religion, okay, and the problems that religion quite often demonstrates. But before I go into the problems, I would like to describe why religions are amazing. Okay, so religions are amazing because they create holy spaces. Okay, in the same way that when you climb up a mountain, climb up a valley, and you get on the edge of it, or maybe on the top, but I like just getting to the edge, just the top edge, just before you get to the top, and then still being within the valley and looking around. I just love that experience. And you get this kind of awe-inspiring kind of view, and there's something about the tiny little person that you are, and the incredible perspective. It's awesome, that's the word. It fills one with awe. Okay, now to have that in a kind of psychosocial space, okay, to effectively go into a space, a small room, for example, and to be in awe. To be in awe of what? Maybe some kind of human capacity. We're not talking about the awe of a spectacular building. Oh, that's quite, the Shard or whatever, or the Gherkin in London, or the pyramids, actually. It's like, wow, that's just astounding. I haven't seen them in person, okay, but I'm sure I'll be like, if I ever do, wow, it's just like phenomenal. They built this, like, while they were living in mud huts. And it's like, what? So, it's a bit like that, but it's not a physical thing that we are appreciating. It's more just the fact that we have awe. So that's what it is. Holy space is a space where you can go in and have a kind of sense of awe at our human condition. The fact that we can experience this and be aware of it is that. The fact that we have gratitude, the fact that we're kind, the fact that we help each other, the fact that our mother and fathers took care of us, the fact that there are civilizations, whatever, has collaborated enough for us to be able to live and talk and listen and enjoy ourselves. I mean, it's just phenomenal, okay? But holy space is a bit more like seeing a valley or seeing something natural, and it's just splendid, that's been created. Right, so there's holy spaces. It's in order to cultivate spiritual practices, okay? So a lot of these religions, although we'll deal with the problems, okay, but the idea is you're trying to create some structure such that us individuals, we possess some quality of awareness, that we can go into these spaces and be allowed to explore them. That's remarkable. Okay, maybe as a young child going into these spaces, or as an adult visiting, we go into these spaces and we go, wow, and it's us. We're bringing this quality into that space. Otherwise, it's just a dead little inert space. It's the fact that we go in there with an attitude, perhaps, that makes it awesome. It's our awesomeness that we are bringing into those spaces. And so the structures of religion are there to try to help that form, okay, within us individually, and because we're all there collectively. It's also been used, okay, and this might be questionable, but we'll get to that in a moment. It's also to try to correct behaviors that are not so ideal. Okay, so perhaps we're exhibiting behaviors externally that are unkind or selfish or mindless. We're walking roughshod over people. We're not really paying attention to them. We're just fulfilling our job roles. Okay, and there may be a little nickel in our mind, but we can kind of ignore it. And then you go into these holy spaces and the religious practices, and maybe there's somebody kind of reminding yourself of, well, be kind, be nice, be gentle, be aware. If you need to do things that are quite strong, quite hard, do them appropriately. And be responsible. Be responsible for who you are and what you do. Okay, and sometimes they do that, in a rather aggressive way, and sometimes it's just, gently trying to remind you to be nice, and also to atone for the things that you've done wrong. Okay, that you might have just ignored, because even it's been supported by various institutional, economic, business, academic education, entertainment. That, well, we're kind of drowning out maybe some other sector of the world, okay? But, we're making our money and we're entertaining people. So it's okay. And then we live happily with that. Whereas going to the religious space means that somebody, the practices are there to try to go, you kind of got to be responsible for this. Okay, so it's amazing. There's a few people could mention Descartes and Fox. That's just because we're going to use them for our kind of, I would say, solution, but practice. Hakuin, Zen Buddhist. George Fox is the founder of Quakerism, and Descartes is one of the founding philosophers in science and philosophy, Western philosophy. Lao Tzu, Tao, Rumi, Sufis. And so, there are many enlightened individuals, just mentioned a few, because we're interested in a certain thing that tries to avoid these problems. These problems we're aware of. Okay, so in the West, religion has taken a bit of a punching, and rightly so. Why? And various others as well. Okay, various other religions. Basically, it becomes rules. Okay, because religio is to do with binding. It's all to do with rules. Is that you're binding something, but the idea is self-binding, self-discipline. Or at least that's my interpretation of it. So the best form of it is self-binding, to make sure that you do the thing that you said that you would do. Okay. However, it can become dogmatism and it can become empty ritual. We can't stand anything. There's nothing worse than empty ritual, where people are just going through the practice of something performatively without the actual spirit, which is the thing that we possess, which religion is meant to be encouraging. So it's just rules. Follow these rules and you'll be fine. Okay, I'll just follow those rules. And people do that blindly, and therefore actually do the very thing that the religion is meant to prevent us from doing, is to actually encourage us to be sensitive in order to do well in society at large. And instead, the religion is telling us to do things, and we're ignoring the effects that it's having on other people. Okay, so therefore, also it's in political structure. Religions, because it's organized by a bunch of people, might have an enlightened founder, but other people subsequently, it starts becoming a structure, starts having a holy book, texts, certain rituals, practices, organizations, people, roles, often hierarchy, and as we know, hierarchy starts becoming problematic in business, also because of the economics. All right, so it's more like an economic and a business-like issue. It becomes political. It's sectarian. It's divisive. It has one religion against another religion, or one, Protestants against Catholics within Christianity, or Catholics versus Muslims versus Buddhists versus, and so on and so forth. And we get this kind of sectarian, political, we have war. Okay, and it's a political thing. This is just to do with the fact that we're human beings and we gather together, and that's our social organization. It's not a fault of religion per se, that's more a fault of the fact that we gather together in hierarchies and the silo problem. Okay, but people attribute that to religion. It's just a political problem. And there's two other things that I put together there. A religion becomes mystical. Okay, so it's we talk about ghosts, we talk about the afterlife, we talk about all these things that we can't really kind of like check. We try to check scientifically, but we know that's not the right method. But there's a mysticism to it, and people kind of like luxuriate in this mysticism, and it's okay. So you're a mystic, I'm a mystic. Oh, we have a mystical understanding. Oh, great. We have no idea what each other is experiencing. Okay, but it's mystical, so it's okay. There's not enough precision. Okay, and confusion. There's a lot of confusion because people, for example, people might gather together to pray for God. What is God, and what are their understandings of God? Does it matter? And there's a lot of confusion as to what God is to individuals, and whether it's okay. Do you actually have to believe in God or not? So different versions. Is it okay to have just animus, just to kind of think that everything is God? I am God, you're God, we're all God, all things of God. Is that appropriate, or do we need more definition? Okay, so it doesn't have too much precision. Okay, Right, given that, these are the problems. Okay, let's go for a couple of techniques. And I'm going to be calling it zero social distance because it's kind of topical. Not sure why that's not horizontal. Zero social distance is topical because in 2010 to 2020, we've become aware of social distance. We've had to impose social distance. And because of that, literally in our streets, staying meters away, even from our loved ones when we see them, we get a chance to see them. Or we've literally been locked down and we cannot even see our families, loved ones, friends, and so on and so forth. Now that is, if it's imposed upon us, that's like being contained in cells, in prisons, okay, like a prison. Okay. However, there are people that have done this, and it is correlating to religious movements. People who practice religious things tend to have this refuge or retreat from normal reality and remove themselves to an equivalent of a cell, but it's self-imposed. They're choosing to return to a cell, choosing to eat simply, not buying things, living in a cell, waking up, meditating, and then that's it basically. Eating a little bit and then falling asleep and then waking up, going through the whole process again for days, for months, for years. Okay? Now that's intentional. Okay? Now that is social distancing of an extreme form. To go up into the mountains, to get away from civilization, to live alone. Okay? And a lot of ascetic practices involved in that. And most founders of any kind of religious organization have gone through that kind of process. Now, what we're interested in is zero social distance. So as COVID disappears off and we return back to normality, we start to engage each other, hugging our friends and having a really nice time socially, we are reducing our distance. But instead of being satisfied with the, I think, relatively far distance that we have with our friends, we actually go for, well, let's go for the zero distance. Let's really connect up. And you can do that in person, but it's actually quite hard because of our social norms, okay, how economic system works, and families, and business. Actually, identity. This one is to do with identity. Okay, and people identify themselves in various ways in terms of nations, in terms of religions, in terms of cultures, and so on and so forth. I would say it's a problem, but it kind of can become a problem. It's related to the war idea and the mysticism and confusion. Right, but zero social distance is basically suggesting, and it's at the heart of a lot of these religious practices, it's basically understanding that my existence, your existence, it's the same. It's identical. It is actually the same. It's not just like similar. It's actually the same thing. Okay, that's when you start getting to the mystical notion. Okay, so and this in quite a lot of religions suggests that if you have that experience, it means then when you engage another human being, you're like, oh wow, you know, because you're appreciating the depth that you've managed to find in yourself, you appreciate that in the other human being. And if the other human being is not doing so well, or even animal is not doing so well, you go, oh gosh, that's not so good. So you have compassion. You suffer with them. Passion, suffering. So compassion, to co-passion, to so they're like suffering. You go, oh, I want to try and avoid that for them, so I shall help them. Oh, now they're happy now. They've got a bit of food. Good. So I've helped them. They were hungry. I've given them food. Oh, they're better now. Great. I feel good. They feel good. Oh, aren't we feeling all good? All right. So the source of this is this zero social distance. Now it's done unilaterally. Okay, so I'm not interested in the social practice of this. I'm interested in the zero social distance. So it's actually, there is no social distance. It is a unilateral thing that one does in one's existence, one's mind. So I'm going to just give you two little techniques just to start you off with this. And if you're interested in this, go into that direction. I go warbling on about that in a little bit more detail. But quite frankly, it's a practice. So we're not interested in the theories of these things like the other things, academia, maths, and economics. We're interested in the theories. We're interested in practices that you can do right now. Okay, I can do right now. So one is, I'm calling it the Descartes-Fox mechanism, because they seem to have two almost identically described methods. So Descartes said cogito ergo sum, and that was his first establishing thought. Oh, I exist. Do I exist? Oh yeah, I do exist. Okay, so cogito, I think, or in fact I doubt, I just go, oh yeah, I do. That's it. Cogito ergo sum. If you say cogito ergo sum as a statement, okay, it means nothing. It's not the statement which is important. It's the fact that you go like that. It's you on your side, like the reflexive reading or reflexive watching, going, oh yeah, I do that bit. Okay, the verification of that, and that's his first establishing point. And the second establishing point after that, he goes on to prove or make statements about God. So Descartes, founding father of philosophy in science. The second thing he says, straight after cogito ergo sum, is God. Do academia? No, of course not. Philosophers? No, of course not. However, and how did he get there? Well, because he considered goodness. He's got a small amount of goodness. He went, oh, okay, there's a small amount of goodness in me. Ah, wait a minute, there's something that has more goodness. Oh, what's the natural extension of that? A thing with pure goodness. God. Okay. So George Fox had a similar thing. He said, so George Fox, by the way, 1637 was Descartes, and during this time, am I correct, or is it 17th century? I can never remember. I always get this wrong. I think 1650s, yeah, 60. Yeah, it is, okay. Similar kind of period is Descartes, George Fox, who was Northern English, categorical person, as in he just, spade is a spade kind of person. And he was quite radical in what he said, and he helped form the Quakers. He was the initiator of it, basically. His formulation was that we all have a light within. It's a pretty simple doctrine, but there's no creed to it. So he distrusts any verbalization or even any promise or creed or anything like that. So he broke all the rules. Okay, so it wasn't about the church, or it wasn't about the book, and it wasn't even about what we think all these things are. It's basically the light within, and we can find this ourselves. Okay, fairly radical, kind of Protestant, kind of similar to that. So light within, that's fine. But the trick is how, okay, so what he did, when he came up with this very simple mechanism, which was contemplate the negative in yourself. So there's something that you do wrong, something that you do badly, something you're not happy with, okay? And what you do is, because you see this thing which is wrong, or you're unhappy with, or, you could have been more generous. Okay, you passed by somebody and you went, and I just left them. And because of that, you have this negative kind of, that's not so nice. I didn't do this nice thing. Somebody said some harsh words to somebody else, and I didn't stand in. Okay, I let it happen. Something's going on in the world which is not great. I'm kind of letting it happen. Okay, so you contemplate that. Okay, you hold it. You don't run away from it. You're not averse to it. You don't ignore it. Okay, you go. You contemplate it. Now, in order for you to contemplate this thing which isn't so good, there must be some aspect of you that is considering it as that is better, in order to understand that that's not good, i.e., kind of a bit like Descartes, there is goodness in me. So if you imagine it, it's like there's something looking at the thing that's not so good inside you. So this is you, that's a thing inside you, or a thing that you've considered to be not so good. You're observing it, or something's observing it. That's the trick. Something is observing it, which is kind of indicates something which is better. And you back off into that. You back into that quality that is aware that that isn't so good. Okay, so you're backing into the assumed goodness, and that's the light. Okay, and if you keep on doing that, you get into the light. You back into the light. You become lighter. You detach from the thing that's not so good, and you become lighter and brighter, and you kind of sink into it. If you were a torch, you're kind of going more into the actual light bulb part of the torch. Okay, that's good enough for me. That's that one. That's the Descartes Fox. Okay, I'll write that up in a second. Another one is multiply by -1. I'm just going to quickly describe that. It's like, this is related, by the way, to XQ. Okay, okay, we'll talk about that another time. Multiply by -1. We don't have time for it, so if you're interested, continue talking about that. I might refer to that when I'm trying to connect all this up. It is correlating to some way or other with this, which is our moment that we are experiencing right now. You listening, all the people listening, the person before, the person after, everybody listening, and me talking at the same moment. There's an aspect that we can practice that, okay, and we need to avoid arguing and kind of disagreements and various things, which is preventing us from really unifying. Okay, so there are practices here that if you think, oh, that's not so good, back off from it, and hopefully it'll improve your state of mind. Okay, that's good enough for me now. Right, if you want to go into that in more detail, however, I have now finished all of these, so we are now going to do the next stage, which is to start to connect up how these make sense in a comprehensive whole, so that we can say, well, why are we doing this? Okay, why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why are we watching any of this? And it's something to do with our social cohesion. And a bit like Descartes, it's about our, gosh, I'm not explaining that well. In terms of, it's a bit like Descartes, but instead of going towards God, what we're interested in is going towards social cohesion to the nth degree. That is all of us. Okay, all of us. Okay, we're interested in this space here, creating a space here, and it's something to do with connecting us all up, which is a kind of closely related to spiritual understanding and practice. All right, great. Thanks very much, and look forward to seeing you on the other side.